Welcome, history lovers, to Boring History, where we strip away the glossy myths and dive into the raw, unfiltered past. Today, we're stepping into the freezing, unforgiving world of medieval England, right in the heart of winter, to explore a place that's nothing like the cozy taverns of your favorite fantasy tales. Picture yourself as a weary traveler in, say, 1350, your cloak stiff with frost, your boots caked in mud, trudging through a landscape that feels like it wants you dead. The roads are treacherous, little more than frozen ruts that could swallow a horse or break your leg. Bandits lurk in the shadows of the forest, the wind bites through your clothes, and disease is a whisper in every gust of icy air. Your only hope is a flicker of light in the distance. A tavern, or as they called it back then, an inn. But don't expect a warm hearth, a hearty meal, or a soft bed. These places were rough, filthy, and often as dangerous as the roads you're fleeing. So, pull your chair closer to the fire, because it's about to get chilly, and let's walk into the smoky, brutal reality of a medieval English tavern in winter, where survival was a gamble, and misery was part of the deal. You're out there on the road, the sky already darkening though it's barely past noon. The Little Ice Age has its grip on England, turning winters into long, cruel tests of endurance. Every step is a battle against the cold, the mud, and the fear that something or someone is watching from the trees. A journey of 20 miles could take days, each one exposing you to bandits, wolves, or the kind of sickness that could kill you before you even felt it coming. That tavern up ahead isn't just a place to rest. It's a lifeline, a speck of human stubbornness against a world that doesn't care if you live or die. As you get closer, you see it. A squat, sagging building patched together from logs, rough stone, or wattle and daub that's clay mixed with straw and, yes, animal dung for extra strength. The windows are tiny slits, covered with oiled cloth or wooden shutters, because glass is for lords, not you. Smoke curls from a hole in the thatched roof, and if there's a sign, it's just a bundle of ivy or a crude carving of a mug or a boar's head, shouting to an illiterate world that this is a place to drink and maybe not freeze to death. You push open the door, and the smell hits you like a fist, sour ale, wet dog, and something you'd rather not name. The ground outside is a mess of slops, manure, and food scraps where pigs and stray dogs rummage. Inside, it's no better. The air is thick with smoke from a central hearth, the fire struggling to warm the room while choking everyone in it. There's no proper chimney, just a hole in the roof that lets some of the smoke escape, leaving the rest to coat the walls, beams, and your lungs in greasy soot. The light is dim, flickering from tallow candles that stink of animal fat or rushlights. Slivers of wood that burn fast, smoke more, and threaten to set the place ablaze. You squint through the haze, trying to make out the faces around you. Merchants clutching their coin, pilgrims muttering prayers, maybe a soldier eyeing you like you're trouble. Your instincts scream to keep your purse close and your knife closer, because this place doesn't feel safe. It's not. But in the dead of winter, with the wind howling and the night full of predators, it's your only option. These taverns weren't just random shacks. They were anchors in a world falling apart at the seams. Travel was a nightmare. Roads turned to mud with the slightest thaw, and a journey of a few dozen miles could take weeks. Every step risked attack, sickness, or just getting lost in a storm. Inns were scattered along these routes, vital for anyone trying to get anywhere. Merchants hauling goods, soldiers rushing to battle, pilgrims chasing salvation, or peasants heading to market. Without them, trade would have stopped, armies would have stalled, and entire regions would have been cut off. The king and local lords knew this, which is why there were laws, often ignored, forcing communities to keep roads and bridges passable. Taverns, or alehouses for the poorer folks, were part of this fragile network, offering a roof and a fire after a grueling day's journey. You aimed to reach one by dusk, because staying on the road after dark was asking for trouble, bandits, wolves, or just the cold that could kill you by morning. So, you stumble into the smoky, stinking room, your body aching, your stomach empty, and you hope, against all evidence, that you'll find something to keep you going. You find a spot at a wobbly table, its surface scarred with the names of travelers long gone, stained with grease and ale. The innkeeper's wife shuffles over, her face as hard as the bread she's carrying. You're starving, but don't expect a feast. In winter, when the fields are frozen and the harvests are a distant memory, food is scarce, and what's left isn't pretty. The bread is dark and heavy, made from rye or barley, because wheat is for the rich. It's chewy, often stale, and sometimes gritty from the millstone. If you're lucky, it's only a day old. If not, it's been sitting there for a week, hard as a rock and maybe sprouting mold. You tear off a piece, your jaw working overtime, and dip it in the bowl she sets down. A thin stew, more water than anything else, with a few turnips or parsnips floating in it. Meat is a rare guest at this table, and when it shows up, it's usually tough offcuts or, worse, bits from an animal that didn't die well. In a coastal inn, you might get salted fish, herring, or cod, but it's just as likely to be rancid, masked with herbs to hide the smell. Fresh vegetables? Forget it. Everything's pickled or dried, and in winter, even that's running low. You eat what you're given because the alternative is hunger, and hunger in the Middle Ages wasn't just uncomfortable, it was deadly. Drinking is another story, and it's not much better. Water's off the table. Wells and rivers near towns are basically sewers, carrying diseases like dysentery or typhoid that could kill you faster than a bandit's knife. So, you drink ale, the lifeblood of every tavern. But this isn't the crisp beer you're thinking of. Medieval ale is a cloudy, thick brew, made from barley or wheat malt and wild yeast. No hops to give it that modern bitterness. They called it liquid bread because it was filling, sometimes sweet, and packed with calories, which was a godsend when food was scarce. But the quality was a roll of the dice. A good batch might be hearty. A bad one could be sour, spoiled, or so raw it was still fermenting. Innkeepers, always chasing a profit, weren't above watering it down or using moldy grain. Some even tossed in weird herbs or additives to mask the taste, which could leave you doubled over with a stomachache, or worse. You drink it because it's safer than water, not because it's good. Even kids got small beer, a weak, barely alcoholic version, just to avoid the well. Wine? That's for nobles or rich merchants. Imported from France or Germany, and even then, it's probably diluted or mixed with cheaper dregs. There were aliconers, officials meant to check quality, but out in the sticks they were rare, and a bribe could make them look the other way. Every sip is a gamble, and in winter, when supplies are low and desperation high, the odds aren't great. The crowd around you doesn't help the mood. This place is a pressure cooker. Merchants guarding their coin, soldiers looking for a fight, pilgrims trying to stay holy in a den of vice, and shifty types who'd rob you blind if you blinked. You keep your hand on your purse because a wrong word or a spilled mug could spark a brawl, and brawls here often end with blood on the floor. The innkeeper's watching, ready to step in if things get too wild, but he's not your friend, he's just protecting his business. In winter, when everyone's cooped up and tempers are short, the tension is thick enough to cut. You're not here for fun. You're here to survive the night, and you're starting to wonder if that's even possible. The health risks make it worse. This tavern is a petri dish, crawling with fleas, lice, and rats that carry worse than a bad smell. Hygiene is a fantasy. Soap's a luxury, and washing means a splash of cold, dirty water from a shared basin. The straw on the floor, meant to soak up spills, is a breeding ground for vermin, and every cough or sneeze from the guy next to you could be a death sentence. In normal times, you might catch a fever or a stomach bug. In bad times, like during the Black Death in the 1340s, a single night in a place like this could mean the plague. Taverns, with their crowds and filth, were perfect for spreading disease. And in winter, when people were packed in tight and weakened by hunger, it was even worse. You swallow your ale, try not to breathe too deeply, and hope you'll make it out alive. Yet, for all its misery, this place is alive with stories. The merchant at the next table is haggling over wool prices, his voice low to avoid eavesdroppers. A soldier's bragging about a battle, his words slurring as the ale kicks in. A pilgrim's whispering about a shrine, his eyes bright with hope. The innkeeper's wife catches it all, her ears sharp as she stirs the pot. This tavern is a hub, a place where news travels, rumors of war, bandit raids, or a king's new tax. In winter, when the world outside is frozen, these smoky rooms are where life keeps moving, where deals are made, secrets are spilled, and sometimes, fates are decided. You're part of it whether you like it or not, because in this world, a tavern isn't just a building. It's where the medieval pulse beats, even in the darkest, coldest months. All you want now is to rest, to escape the cold and the noise for a few hours. You've choked down your watery stew, sipped your questionable ale, and the innkeeper points you to the great chamber, the common sleeping room where travelers like you end up. Don't picture a private room with a lock and a comfy bed. This is a cramped, drafty space with straw mattresses or rough wooden bunks scattered across a dirt or plank floor. The mattresses are stuffed with straw or dried leaves, lumpy and crawling with fleas, lice, and bedbugs. They're rarely cleaned, maybe changed once a month if the innkeeper's feeling generous. And every move you make stirs up something that bites. The blankets, if you get one, are thin, coarse, and shared among strangers, carrying the sweat and stink of everyone who's used them before. You're not sleeping well tonight. You're just trying to make it to morning without losing your sanity or your health. The room is packed, because in winter, nobody's foolish enough to sleep outside. You're shoulder to shoulder with strangers. Men, women, sometimes kids, all huddled together for warmth. Personal space doesn't exist here. You might be pressed against a snoring merchant, a muttering pilgrim, or someone who looks like they'd rob you in your sleep. The air is heavy with the smell of unwashed bodies, damp wool, and whatever's rotting in the straw. The cold is relentless. There's no fire in here, just the faint heat from the bodies around you. The walls are full of gaps, letting in icy drafts that cut through your cloak. You pull the blanket tight, wrap yourself in your clothes, and pray you don't freeze. Washing isn't an option. There's a bucket of cold, murky water in a corner, but soap's for the rich, and nobody's bothering. The lack of hygiene makes this place a disease factory. A cough from the person next to you could be a cold, or it could be typhoid, dysentery, or worse. During the plague years, taverns like this were death traps, with fleas and rats spreading the Black Death faster than you could run. You lie there, scratching at bites, listening to the creak of the building and the rustle of something moving in the dark, wondering if you'll wake up at all. The danger isn't just from bugs or sickness, it's from the people. This room is a mix of the desperate and the dangerous. Merchants clutch their coin, soldiers sleep with one hand on their knives, and thieves wait for you to doze off. Robberies are common. Someone might slip a hand into your pack or, worse, come at you with a blade in the dark. The innkeeper's supposed to keep order, but he's not your bodyguard. He might break up a fight to save his furniture, but if you get robbed, that's your problem. Some innkeepers are in on the scams, tipping off local thieves about rich travelers or drugging your ale to make you an easy mark. In winter, when everyone's stuck inside and desperation runs high, the tension is electric. A dice game gone wrong, a careless insult, or even a loud snore could spark a fight. And fights here don't always end with just bruises. You sleep with one eye open, your hand on your knife, because trust is a luxury you can't afford. But even in this miserable, bug-infested room, there's a strange kind of life. The people around you are the medieval world in miniature, each with their own story, their own fight. The merchant's dreaming of a big sale in London. The soldiers haunted by a battle he barely survived. The pilgrims clutching a relic, praying it'll save his soul. You hear snatches of their lives in the dark, whispers of deals, boasts, fears. The tavern is a crossroads, a place where the threads of 1,000 lives tangle. The innkeeper's wife, still awake somewhere, is listening too, catching every word. This place is a hub of secrets, and secrets are power. A careless word about a rebellion could reach the king's spies. A tip about a rich traveler could bring bandits to the door. In winter, when the world outside is locked in ice, these rooms are where the medieval heartbeat pounds loudest, keeping the stories, the schemes, and the struggles alive. That heartbeat belongs to the innkeeper, the man holding this chaotic world together. Step into his boots for a moment, because running a tavern in winter is a job for the tough, the cunning, and the lucky. You're up before dawn, hauling firewood through the snow, because without it, your tavern's a frozen tomb. The cold is your enemy, eating through your fuel faster than you can afford. You've got to keep the hearth going, but every log you burn is one less for tomorrow, and stealing wood could land you in chains. Supplies are another headache. Grain is scarce, and what's available is often moldy or worm-eaten. You check every sack because a bad batch could ruin you. Meat is even harder to come by. Maybe you've got some salted pork or a bit of game from a poacher, but it's never enough, and it's usually the cheapest cuts. You stretch everything, watering down the ale, thinning the stew, because if you don't, you won't make it to spring. But you've got to be careful, cheat too much, and the customers will turn on you. Cheat too little and you'll starve. Your customers are a nightmare of their own. Your tavern's packed with every kind of person. Merchants with coin to protect, soldiers with tempers, pilgrims who think they're above it all, and thieves who'd rob you blind if you blinked. You've got to read them like a book, spotting the ones who'll pay, the ones who'll fight, and the ones who'll run without settling their tab. A merchant might haggle over a crust of bread. A soldier might start swinging if you cut him off. That quiet guy in the corner might be a spy or a killer. You've learned to calm a drunk with a free mug or a sharp word, but sometimes you've got to get rough. You've thrown out troublemakers, dodging fists and knives because a brawl could wreck your place. You're not just a host, you're a diplomat, a bouncer, and sometimes a crook, because survival means playing dirty. Outside your walls, the threats keep coming. Local lords and tax collectors demand their cut, and if you don't pay, they'll seize your tavern or worse. Bandits might offer protection for a price, and refusing them could mean a torched roof. During wars, and there's always a war, soldiers might take over, turning your place into a barracks or a hospital, eating your food and drinking your ale without a penny. Pick the wrong side and you're a target when the other side wins. You've heard of taverns burned during the Wars of the Roses, of innkeepers caught between York and Lancaster, their lives snuffed out for serving the wrong guest. You keep your head down, your ears open, and your loyalties flexible, because taking sides is a death sentence. Your wife is your lifeline, as tough as you are. She brews the ale, cooks the stew, and deals with the guests when you're breaking up a fight or haggling with a supplier. She's got a sharp eye for cheats and a sharper tongue for drunks, and she's saved your skin more than once. If you die, war, sickness, a bad night, she'll take over because there's no one else. History remembers aloes like her, some honest, some as crooked as the roads outside. Together, you're a team, navigating a world that's always one bad day from collapsing. Your tavern's a hub of secrets, and you hear it all: news of a rebellion, a bandit raid, a king's death. You don't take sides, but you listen because information is currency. Spies might pay for a tip about a noble passing through. A bandit might want to know about a rich merchant. You're careful, because one wrong word could bring the king's men to your door, or worse. Winter makes it all harder. The cold seeps into everything, and firewood is worth more than gold. Travelers are hungrier, angrier, sicker, and they're stuck with you longer because the roads are snowed in. Disease is a shadow. Coughs and fevers spread fast. And if the plague comes, your tavern's a tomb. You've seen it happen. Villages wiped out, bodies in pits, and you pray it spares you. You're not just an innkeeper. You're a juggler, keeping a dozen deadly balls in the air, knowing one slip could end it all. But you keep going, because this tavern isn't just your livelihood. It's a piece of the medieval world, a place where life, for all its misery, refuses to stop. That refusal is what makes taverns so fascinating, because they were more than just buildings, they were mirrors of a brutal era. Winter in medieval England was a season of survival, with the Little Ice Age bringing colder temperatures, shorter harvests, and hunger that gnawed at everyone. Your tavern felt it as much as any village. Food was scarce, and a bowl of stew could cost a fortune during a famine. Travelers would beg for scraps, and you'd have to turn them away or risk starving yourself. Firewood was a constant battle. Without it, your place was uninhabitable, but gathering enough was backbreaking, and stealing it could mean a noose. The cold wasn't just uncomfortable. It was a killer, and your tavern was often the only thing keeping a traveler from freezing in a ditch. Disease was the real terror, and your tavern was a perfect breeding ground. Fleas, lice, and rats thrived in the filth, carrying everything from fevers to the Black Death, which tore through Europe in the 1340s, killing up to half the population. A single sick traveler could turn your place into a graveyard, and in winter, when people were packed in tight and weakened by hunger, it was worse. You'd burn herbs or vinegar, hoping to keep the air clean, but it was like fighting a dragon with a stick. Death was always close. Sometimes you'd close a guest's eyes, drag their body to a mass grave, and pray you weren't next. But even in the face of plague, famine, and cold, your tavern kept going, because it had to. It was where the medieval world came together, where the rich and poor, the holy and the wicked, shared a table, a bed, a story. Your tavern was a crossroads, a place where lives collided. A merchant sealed a deal that kept a town alive. A soldier carried orders that changed a war. A pilgrim spread word of a miracle. News traveled here, rumors of rebellion, taxes, or bandit raids. You heard it all, and sometimes you passed it on because information was power. During the Wars of the Roses, when England split between York and Lancaster, your tavern might have been a hideout for spies, a meeting spot for plotters, or a battlefield when loyalties clashed. One wrong move, sheltering the wrong fugitive, serving the wrong lord, could burn your world down. But you kept the doors open because people needed you, and because stopping wasn't an option. This was the medieval world in all its raw, unfiltered glory. A place of struggle against nature, disease, and each other. Your tavern reflected it all. The cold, the hunger, the danger, the stubborn will to keep going. It wasn't glamorous or fun. It was a fight, every single day. You might curse the watery ale or the flea-ridden beds, but without this place, the medieval world would have ground to a halt. It was where humanity endured, one cold, smoky night at a time. So, that's the story of the medieval tavern in winter, a gritty, unglamorous tale of survival in a world that didn't make it easy. Thanks for joining us on this freezing journey through the past. If you loved peeling back the myths to see the real Middle Ages, hit that like button, subscribe to Boring History, and drop a comment telling us what other dark corners of history you want us to explore. Stay warm, stay curious, and we'll see you in the next one.